Your significant other just revealed their true form to you. You knew already and are trying to hide the fact that it was a big reason why you were dating them. The proposal was going a little bumpier than I'd hoped. The initial reaction from my girlfriend had been all the right things. Elation, ecstatic freaking out, smiling and hugging and kissing. But after about a minute, something had changed. A dark, worried look had flashed across Courtney's face, and with a stammered excuse, she'd rushed off to our room and locked the door behind her. A long, soul-crushing silence followed. I'd called to her at first, my fear rising like a clenched fist around my heart. But after half an hour with no response, I'd set myself down against the wall beside the door and waited. It was a full hour before I heard her voice again, now trembling with emotion and hoarse from crying. "Honey," she whispered, her voice close behind the door, suddenly breaking the silence. "There's something I need to show you." I stood up and back from the door as it opened, revealing the slight form of my girlfriend behind it. Her dark curls were a messy tangle about her face, her eyes red and swollen, tears still clinging to her cheeks. She looked so small, so sad and resigned. I merely nodded, smiling reassuringly. She took a deep breath, and with a look of pained concentration on her face, my girlfriend began to change. At first, the only noticeable difference was her height. Courtney was 5'1" in shoes, but now her small frame seemed to grow. Her limbs stretched and changed, growing long and inhuman. Fur sprouted from her skin, turning from isolated clumps to a thick, glossy coat. Her clothes ripped and tore from her body, the sudden growth turning them to rags, the fur making them pointless anyway. Her hands and feet warped and twisted into bestial paws, her nails now dark, gleaming claws. She held her head in her hands as she changed, coarse, guttural growls escaping her. When she lifted her head, her face was now long and canine, her mouth lined with fangs the length of my fingers. She towered over me, her dark, glowing red eyes staring down at me, the tips of her vulpine ears touching our ceiling. She had to stoop down not to break it. She stared at me then, her form dark and dangerous before me, eyes locked on mine in a way that reminded me of the time I met a mountain lion on a hiking trail as a kid. "Well," Courtney growled, her voice holding little trace of the human one I was familiar with. "This is me. The real me." Even as a 7-foot-tall werewolf, I could feel the anxiety in her voice. I cleared my throat. "Honey, first of all, thank you so much for trusting me. I can't imagine this was easy for you, and I love you very much." I take a deep breath. "Secondly, I may have already known." She looks down at me, her jaw going slack with shock. "What? How?" she howls, her voice echoing through our apartment. "Well, remember the day we met when you were out in the woods, lost, and I gave you a ride back to the National Park campgrounds?" She nods. "I may have seen you when you transformed back into a human." She stares at me, the silence feeling almost heavy as she processes what I've just said. "So, you knew I was a werewolf all this time, and still wanted to date me despite that?" she asks, clearly trying to wrap her head around it. I smile shyly. "Not really despite it, more like, it was sorta a big reason why I asked for your number in the first place." I look at her sheepishly, as a look of puzzlement. Then curiosity washes over Courtney's wolfish expression. "You want to cuddle while I'm in this form, don't you?" "Yes," I nod. "Yes, I do."